cadê Zé? Ô mãe, cadê Zé? Tá sentado no toco cheirando rapé, tá sentado no toco cheirando rapé. Ô mãe, cadê Zé? Ô mãe, cadê Zé? Tá sentado no toco cheirando rapé, tá sentado no toco cheirando rapé. Ô mãe, cadê Zé? Ô mãe, cadê Zé? Tá sentado no toco cheirando rapé, tá sentado no toco cheirando rapé. Ô mãe, cadê Zé? Ô mãe, cadê Zé? Tá sentado no toco cheirando rapé, tá sentado no toco cheirando rapé. Ô mãe, cadê Zé? Ô mãe, cadê Zé? Tá sentado no toco cheirando rapé, tá sentado no toco cheirando rapé. Ô mãe, cadê Zé? Ô mãe, cadê Zé? Tá sentado no toco cheirando rapé, tá sentado no toco cheirando rapé.
Hey everybody, welcome to Summer. I'm Darek Mazzone. We're based in Seattle, and we create a program focusing on artists from all over the world who are doing powerful music, powerful art with their music, and represent their culture in really interesting ways. Not so much focused on their victories or their ego or their material gains, but more in the I call it the sacred space, but almost you could say multicultural, multi-representational, trying to create work that transcends just their one perspective on life. I know it's broad, but if you go deeper into some of our past shows, and as you spend time with me here as we interview our guest today, you'll get it. You'll get it. It'll make perfect sense to you. His name is Maga Bo, and he's based in Rio de Janeiro. He's a pioneer of the global bass movement, a producer, percussionist, and of course DJ. And I've been a fan of his for a long time. He started in Seattle, then moved to Rio de Janeiro. He's internationally renowned for his production work on labels like Ninja Tune, True Thoughts, ZZK, Soundway, and he collaborates with a whole bunch of amazing musicians all throughout Brazil and beyond. He has worked and performed in over 50 countries, including performances at Womex, we were just at, Worldwide Festival, WOMAD UK. He counts among his collaborators, of course, the amazing Ethiopian musician Mulado Statke, Marcelo Yuka, Issa Bagayogo, and his remixes have been released throughout the world. He's got a new record out that's coming out on his own label, Kashambu Records, on May 27th. It's called Amor e Revolução. And we have a video from Maga Bo right now.
Que veio de Salvador.
Maga Bo. Bo, how are you?
Oh, well, thanks for having me here. I'm good.
Thanks for being here. Catch me up. I love the new record, and I love that video. It seems that you continue with your beautiful evolution of bass culture, urban culture, and adding a level of, I don't want to say tribal, but a level of earthiness to this music. How did this record come about?
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, I kind of my objective in a lot of ways was over the years has been to combine traditional roots culture with sound system culture, and I grew up loving reggae music and dub music and dancehall, and I think my first real sort of traveling that I ever did by myself was to go to Jamaica. When I was graduated from high school. I think I was 18 years old, so that's been something that's really been close to my heart for a really long time. So the album is kind of really just a reflection of the things that I hold dear and that I love. So there's not a whole lot of other criteria beyond that's the basic criteria for me. If I love it, if it makes my heart beat faster, then that motivates me to work on it, I guess.
So 18, Jamaica alone, that's a big impact, my friend. A bit about your process. How did you go from, I'm playing these places, I'm playing these clubs, I'm on at 4 o'clock in the morning and I'm just going to bang it out, to creating much more complex, sophisticated, yet, dare I say, even more simplistic music? What's the process? How did you do that?
Well, I think in a way it's kind of it's involving in multiple different directions, kind of all at the same time. I think I think in the beginning, this kind of mix of the roots with the digital, with the sort of synthetic, with the organic, or with the urban, with the natural, these are all sort of dichotomies that I find really interesting, and personally, on a personal level, I'm constantly bouncing back and forth between them. I love New York City. I love London. Big cities, and the kind of the sort of Babylon, millions of languages and people and sort of energy, and I love that kind of sort of energy. I don't mean like Babylon that cuts down the ganja trees, by the way.
Yeah. It is Babylon,
Right, but and I also love the nature and the being in total pure nature, and there are different energies, and I think we as humans obviously are kind of interacting with both places. So it was kind of a natural thing for me to do, to try and make this happen, but it was also a real challenge because if you look at the roots sort of folkloric music scene, there's not a lot of leeway to be including 808 kick drums in folkloric music. The people that listen to that are not real. It's not part of the tradition. And you can also sort of look at it from the other way. If you look at the club electronic music, it's not really part of that tradition, if we can even call it that. I guess we can. It's been 50 whatever years that electronic music, or more, that electronic music's been happening. But it's not really so much part of it to be including like alfayas and ilus and caixa and all these different traditional percussive instruments. So for a long time, I really sort of found myself in this no man's land limbo, where like it was like hard to get a gig with the roots traditional people and hard to get a gig with the electronic people, but that was what always really kind of turned my crank and made me excited about things, about music, and so I continued pursuing it. And I think a lot of other people had similar experiences over the last 2 decades or so, and this has been something that's kind of been growing. The rhythmic cells that I'm working with, and especially in Brazilian music, the rhythmic cells are very, very specific, and if you start getting into candomblé or more spiritual situations, contexts, these rhythmic cells become even more complicated and even more specific, so you'll have a very, very specific rhythm for a specific prayer or something like that. So the song opens my new record, Axé Pro Bará, is an example of that. It's a very specific drum rhythm that goes with that prayer. The prayer is, when I recorded with him, he asked me not to modify the arrangement of the prayer, because if I modified that, which is a very common thing as for DJs, you know, so we eventually remixed it, but the guys that remixed it, they know about that. They were very aware of all of that, and so you know, we kept it intact, and so that's kind of how I try to approach all of the music that I work with. That it's, you know, to be respecting these original rhythmic cells which have been developed over, you know, who knows how many hundred thousands of years. They're that way for a reason, and so what I want to do, my job is that I want to fortify and build that up, and I want to contribute, I want to maintain that and conserve it, to maintain it and to take good care of it, you know, to treat it with responsibility.
You're succeeding.
I hope so.
No, you are. It becomes a really interesting narrative, especially in the context of club culture, because club kids are getting more sophisticated. Obviously, they're getting older, but they're still staying within the culture, and they want more than just a 4/4. I mean, there's a great place for it, and it's awesome, but it feels like, you know, as you grow older, your tastes become more sophisticated. You have life experiences, and, you know, it doesn't mean that you have to slip into neoclassical or, you know, abstract jazz. You can find aspects of that within your culture as long as that culture evolves. And I kind of put you in that vein where it's like, okay, and especially in the context of the kind of music you're presenting, you know, Sama is focused on global sacred music, which is a broad subject. You know, it could be anything from, you know, Cappella Romana doing Orthodox chanting all the way to the kind of work that you're doing, you know, where it's like, or, you know, Majid Bekas or something like that, or Chalaban taking Gnawa rhythms, and yet keeping that transformational capability of the music, because the music's intention as a prayer, as a sacrament, as an acknowledgement of a transition in life, or some type of like, this music is intentional for this purpose. Finding a way to bring that to the dance floor, finding a way to bring that to the earbuds or whatever, however you're hearing, where it doesn't need to be tied to that space, to that physical place. You're still able to bring a bit of that into wherever that music and that art form is being presented. And I find now, as a society, and specifically one of the reasons I want to talk to you about it is, like, you're living in Brazil, and Brazil has it's a gigantic, complicated country, but it has a significant indigenous population, and that indigenous population is, nice kitty, that indigenous population is trying to hold on to and succeeding to its identity as separate from the dominant culture, the dominant language, and all of those things there. And music is a powerful way to present that. You know, as it's a way that's easily digestible by other cultures, and it's like language, music, art, cuisine. These are the things that give a buoyancy, a life to other cultures, and we can learn from those. The title track of the album is Amor é Revolução, so love is revolution, which to me is basically, you know, we're on this, you know, tiny ball spinning around in the middle of space, and our bodies are made of, you know, basically, like, we're not even like solid things. We're like atoms with space in between them that are all, you know, orbiting around each other. And, you know, here's a bunch of orbits here, atoms orbiting here, and oh, those are orbiting in such a way that, okay, I know that that's my fingernail, and here is my, you know, my this or that or whatever. But it's I guess my point is that we're basically just energy, and we're energy in movement, in constant transition. Thank you. We're going to close on that. And best of luck. I hope to see you soon. And thanks everybody for watching Sama, Sales Record Music and Art. Be well. Peace. Love.
Cheers.
Cheers.